There exists within each of us a profound loneliness that we attempt to fill with the presence of others. We reach outward, grasping at relationships, friendships, and connections, believing that another person will complete the emptiness we feel inside. We become emotionally dependent, attaching our happiness to whether someone texts us back, whether they approve of our choices, whether they remain in our lives. This dependency becomes a prison of our own making, where our emotional state rises and falls with the tides of other people's moods, availability, and affections. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give me a like, comment below about your thought and hit subscribe button so you don't miss any video inspired by Yogananda's teaching. Thank you very much. The great spiritual teacher Paramahansa Yogananda understood this human tendency deeply. He recognized that our emotional dependency on others stems from a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of happiness and fulfillment. We have been conditioned to believe that joy comes from external sources, that love must be received from another person to be real, that our worth is determined by how others perceive and treat us. This conditioning creates a cycle of suffering that repeats itself throughout our lives, relationship after relationship, disappointment after disappointment. When we are emotionally dependent on someone, we give away our power. We hand over the remote control of our inner peace to another fallible human being who is dealing with their own struggles, limitations, and journey. We make them responsible for our happiness, which is an impossible burden for anyone to carry. This dependency manifests in countless ways, constantly checking our phones for messages, feeling anxious when someone doesn't respond immediately, needing reassurance and validation, feeling devastated when plans change, or experiencing our entire day being ruined because someone was in a bad mood. The alternative that Yogananda and other spiritual masters have pointed toward is not to become cold, isolated, or disconnected from others. Rather, it is to cultivate a deep, unshakable connection with the divine source within ourselves. This inner connection becomes the foundation of our emotional stability, our sense of worth, and our capacity to experience genuine love. When we are rooted in this inner connection, we can engage with others from a place of wholeness rather than neediness, from abundance rather than lack. This shift begins with understanding that the love and fulfillment we seek externally already exists within us. The divine presence, which Yogananda often referred to as the inner self or God, is the source of infinite love, peace, and joy. This is not merely a philosophical concept or religious belief, but a living reality that can be experienced directly through spiritual practice. When we turn our attention inward through meditation, prayer, and self-reflection, we begin to tap into this inexhaustible wellspring of contentment that does not depend on external circumstances or other people's behavior. The practice of meditation becomes essential in breaking free from emotional dependency. In the silence of meditation, we discover that we are not our thoughts, not our emotions, and not the stories we tell ourselves about needing others to be happy. We begin to experience ourselves as consciousness itself, as awareness that is inherently peaceful and complete. This direct experience gradually dissolves the false belief that we are incomplete beings who need something or someone external to make us whole. As we deepen our meditation practice, something remarkable begins to happen. The desperate quality of our relationships starts to fade. We no longer cling to people out of fear of being alone. We no longer manipulate situations to get the validation we crave. We no longer feel devastated when someone disappoints us or leaves our life. Instead, we begin to relate to others from a place of genuine freedom and love. We can appreciate people for who they are without needing them to be different. We can enjoy their presence without being destroyed by their absence. This transformation does not happen overnight. Emotional dependency is often rooted in deep patterns formed in childhood, reinforced by years of conditioning and repeated experiences. Breaking free requires patience, persistence, and compassion for ourselves. There will be moments when we slip back into old patterns, when we find ourselves once again seeking external validation or feeling anxious about someone's opinion of us. These moments are not failures but opportunities to practice returning to our inner center, to reconnect with the source of peace within. One of the most powerful practices Yogananda taught was the cultivation of divine love. This is different from the conditional, need-based love that characterizes emotionally dependent relationships. Divine love is unconditional, expansive, and self-sustaining. It does not diminish when it is not returned. It does not depend on the other person behaving in a certain way. It flows from the infinite reservoir within us, and the more we give it, the more we have. To cultivate this divine love, we must first direct it toward ourselves. This is not narcissism or self-absorption, but rather a recognition of the divine spark within us that is worthy of love simply because it exists. Many of us have been taught that self-love is selfish, that we should always put others first, that our needs and feelings are less important than those of others. This conditioning creates the perfect conditions for emotional dependency, because we look to others to give us the love and validation we refuse to give ourselves. When we begin to treat ourselves with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that we would offer to a beloved friend, something shifts. We stop abandoning ourselves in relationships. We stop tolerating treatment that diminishes us. We stop betraying our own needs and boundaries to keep someone else happy. This is not about becoming selfish or uncaring toward others, but about recognizing that we cannot pour from an empty cup, that we cannot truly love others if we do not first love ourselves. As we fill ourselves with this divine love through spiritual practice and self-compassion, we naturally become less dependent on others for our emotional well-being. We can then enter into relationships as whole people connecting with other whole people, rather than as two halves desperately trying to complete each other. This creates the foundation for truly healthy, mature relationships where both people maintain their individual connection to the divine source while also sharing their lives together. The magic that Yogananda spoke of happens when we make this shift from external dependency to internal connection. Paradoxically, when we stop desperately needing people, we often find that our relationships improve dramatically. People are naturally drawn to those who are centered, peaceful, and self-sufficient. There is an attractive quality to someone who is happy within themselves, who does not need constant reassurance, who can be present without being clingy, who can love without being possessive. Moreover, when we are no longer emotionally dependent, we become free to see people clearly as they truly are, rather than through the distorted lens of our needs and expectations. We can appreciate their unique qualities without needing them to fulfill a role in our life. We can accept their limitations without feeling betrayed. We can celebrate their growth even when it takes them in a different direction from us. This clarity and acceptance creates space for authentic connection that is far more satisfying than the anxious attachment of emotional dependency. The journey from emotional dependency to inner freedom also involves learning to be comfortable with solitude. Many people are terrified of being alone because they have never developed a relationship with themselves or with the divine presence within. They fill every moment with distractions, social media, entertainment, or the company of others because silence and solitude feel unbearable. But it is precisely in solitude that we can cultivate the inner connection that liberates us from dependency. Learning to enjoy our own company, to find peace in silence, to feel fulfilled even when no one else is around is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. This does not mean becoming a hermit or avoiding relationships, but rather developing the capacity to be equally content whether we are alone or with others. When we reach this state, we are truly free. We can engage with people because we want to, not because we need to. We can contribute to relationships from a place of overflow rather than deficit. Another aspect of breaking free from emotional dependency involves releasing our attachment to outcomes in relationships. When we are dependent, we are constantly trying to control how others feel about us, what they think of us, whether they stay in our lives. This creates enormous stress and suffering because we cannot control other people. They have their own free will, their own journey, their own lessons to learn. When we try to control them or manipulate situations to get the outcome we want, we create resistance and often push away the very thing we are trying to hold on to. Yogananda taught the principle of non-attachment, which is often misunderstood as not caring. True non-attachment is not indifference but rather a deep trust in the divine order of things. It is the ability to love fully while simultaneously releasing our grip on how things should unfold. It is the wisdom to know that if someone is meant to be in our life, they will be, and if they are not, then their departure is making space for something better aligned with our highest good. This trust in divine timing and divine order comes from our connection to the source within. When we know that we are always supported, always guided, always loved by the infinite intelligence that orchestrates the universe, we can relax our desperate attempts to control external circumstances. We can surrender to the flow of life, trusting that everything is unfolding exactly as it should for our spiritual growth and evolution. The magic that happens when we make this shift is not just improved relationships, though that is certainly one benefit. The real magic is the discovery of an inner peace and joy that is not dependent on anything external. It is the realization that we have always been complete, that we have never been separate from the source of love and fulfillment we have been seeking. It is the freedom to move through life with an open heart, giving and receiving love freely without the fear and anxiety that characterizes emotional dependency. This transformation ripples out into every area of our lives. When we are no longer emotionally dependent, we make better decisions because we are not clouded by fear of losing someone or desperate need for approval. We pursue our authentic path rather than contorting ourselves to fit what we think others want from us. We express our truth even when it might not be popular. We set healthy boundaries without guilt. We honor our own needs and desires alongside those of others. The practice of cultivating this inner connection is simple but not easy. It requires daily dedication to meditation, to prayer, to self-reflection, to conscious awareness of our patterns and triggers. It requires honesty about when we are slipping into dependency and the willingness to course correct. It requires patience with ourselves as we unlearn decades of conditioning. But the rewards are immeasurable. The freedom, peace, and authentic love that emerge from this practice are worth every moment of effort. As we walk this path, we become beacons of light for others who are still trapped in the cycle of emotional dependency. We show through our example that another way is possible, that happiness does not have to depend on external circumstances, that love can flow freely without attachment and fear. We inspire others to begin their own journey inward, to discover their own connection to the divine source, to break free from the prison of dependency. This is the magic that Yogananda spoke of. The transformation from a life of anxious attachment and emotional dependency to a life of inner freedom, divine love, and authentic connection. It is available to anyone willing to turn their attention inward, to cultivate their relationship with the source, to do the inner work required to break free from old patterns. The journey begins with a single step, a single moment of choosing to connect with the peace within rather than seeking it from someone else. And with each step, the magic unfolds, revealing the truth that we have always been whole, always been loved, always been free.